Hosea 5, verse 3. I know Ephraim, and Israel is not hid from me. Now, that's an important phrase. Israel is not hid from me. Now, God's going to hide himself from Ephraim, but he's letting them know, nobody's hiding from me. I can hide from you anytime I feel like it. However, no hiding place is going to do for man to find. For now, O Ephraim, thou committest whoredom, and Israel is defiled. Ephraim is the leader. It seems like in this rebellion, or they've got some responsibility they're bearing. All of Israel was responsible. They were all doing this. There wasn't one tribe that you could say that one is good and the other ones are bad. He's calling Ephraim out, so they must have had a special hand in bringing the demise of Israel to its end. In Isaiah 7 verse 17. Isaiah 7:17. You almost get the idea that God is holding a grudge for Ephraim leaving the southern kingdoms when they divided. Now, I'm not going to make a rule about that, because it was the prophet who prophesied, I'm going to give 10 tribes to you, and Solomon's house will keep 2. So that's done by order of God, more of his permissive will than what he wanted to happen. Isaiah 7:17, the Lord shall bring upon thee, and upon thy people, and upon thy father's house, days that have not come, from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria. Okay, Assyria is going to come down, he's going to take them out. And he's pointing it back to another bad time in his mind was the day they left Judah, the day they separated and became the northern coalition. Hosea 5, look at verse 4. Hosea 5, verse 4. They will not frame their doings to turn unto their God, for the spirit of whoredom is in the midst of them, and they have not known the Lord. He said a bunch of things in there. He says they're not framing their doings, that is, they're not reprimanding themselves, they're not reforming on their own. And then he uses a phrase in here that you would think is, it's just overlooked. But to me, it's positive. He's still claiming to be their God. He says, they will not frame their doings to turn unto their God. He's talking about himself. So he's still claiming them as his people. Even though he's mad at them and he's going to beat them, and some of them he's going to take out, but he's still claiming to be the God of Israel. For the spirit of whoredom is in the midst of them. Now, this is more than just committing whoredom. It's the spirit of whoredom. We talked about a little bit recently about the difference in the Old Testament and when Jesus showed up. When Jesus showed up, he says, you've heard it said, here's the letter of the law. But I say unto you, let's make it even harder, the spirit of the law. And so that's heightening it. This is a spirit of something. So it takes off. It could be people involved in things that are not whoredom, but with the same connotation. So just like them cheating spiritually on God is a spirit of whoredom, even though there's no intercourse going on. He says, and they have not known the Lord. Whew. You don't want to have that said. Now, it would be different if they were ignorant of him. But what they had known, they had forgotten and thrown behind their back, or on purpose ignored him. Judges 2. See where it happens in Judges. Judges 2, verse 10. Judges 2:10. It doesn't take long to produce a nation of unbelievers. We're beginning to see it. All it takes is things of God, the Bible, to be not important to one generation. Just not important. And then that's going to multiply with each preceding generation until soon there's no cause to do it at all. I recall someone who rarely would go to church, but they thought they were spiritual. And I'm not saying you got to go to church to be spiritual. I'm saying if you're spiritual, you will go to church. You want to be where other Christians are. I mean, that's... if you want to learn how to play baseball, you go to all the baseball camps and you study up on it. You go where they're teaching about baseball. You don't ignore it. Well, then, when her kids never wanted to go to church, she couldn't understand it. Well, duh, it wasn't important to you. It's sure not going to be important to them. And nowadays what they've done is they've used to, when I was growing, of course, I can't base anything on, because I was always around a Christian crowd. So when I was growing up, no functions were scheduled for Sunday or Wednesday. In fact, Wednesday we didn't have homework.
On Sunday, everything was closed.
Right. Yeah. You couldn't even hook your buggy up, I know. But then that slowly changed. Now all the games, all the functions are on Sunday. So what do the churches do? I gotta quit talking. The churches switched to no Sunday night service. Okay, that'll fix that. No, it doesn't, because then the ball game is out of town. They gotta travel for it anyway. So all it takes is one generation to say, we'll do it when it's convenient. Christians are not Christians by convenience. We're more Christians by inconvenience. That makes a statement. Did I read Judges 2:10? No. And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers. And there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. And you know what he does about that? He says, I'm going to put them through war. And he names the generations. Where is that? That's in... I should have put that in there. I didn't. Judges, is that... should be right in that same passage. 3, okay. Yes. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan. Something about a war, something about trouble that makes you get to know God. And they didn't know him, so he said, okay, let's put you on the speed course to getting to know me. War. They say, now I know it's not right, but it's a general thing. They say there's no atheist in foxholes. Now I'm sure there are. However, by and large, when you're face to face with death, you're also face to face with the judge. And you just know it. It's instinctive. He made you and you're accountable to him, and you'll know it. Look at it in 1 Samuel 2. 1 Samuel 2 verse 12. 1 Samuel 2 verse 12. In Judges, the generation didn't know the Lord, I don't think so much by ignoring him, but just by not being taught. Here we find some boys who don't know the Lord because of choice. 1 Samuel 2:12. Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. Well, we would think they knew the Lord just by watching what they did. They did the priest's office. In fact, we find out that they would take the meat before it was cooked and say, I'll eat it raw. So they were functioning as a priest. So you would think they knew the Lord, but they really didn't. It was just an outward activity. 1 Kings 22. 1 Kings 22:10. This is a dangerous slope Jehoshaphat gets on here. And the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, sat each on his throne, having put their robes in a void place in the entrance of the gates of Samaria. And all the prophets prophesied before them. Now these prophets, you're going to find out, are all prophets that are phony prophets. And they're all there to say whatever the attaboy that the king wants to hear, they'll give. And I'm not going to preach a sermon. I don't think I'm going to preach a sermon on it, but you can take that, and there's a good sermon in there. He says, both of them, the king of Israel, who is no good to begin with, that's Ahab. Isn't that Ahab? Yeah. Pagan as you can get, and Jehoshaphat, who was somewhat good, but to get everybody on the same page. They get together here, and he said they put their robes in a void place. Okay, well, Jehoshaphat should have been wearing a robe of righteousness. And a Christian can do that. A Christian can take off his robe of righteousness and try to hide it so he can fit in with the world. And he gets the same result as this story right here. Look down at verse 12. And all the prophets prophesied so, saying, Go up to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it into the king's hand. You don't get honesty, you don't get truth if you're not seeking it. And sometimes God will allow you to hear what you want to hear because you've already determined what you're going to do. That's why it's very important when we go to the Bible, we let the Bible teach us, not us teach the Bible. I know that that's an extreme statement, but we all do that to some degree. You go to the Bible and you say, well, I know this and I know this. Therefore, when I saw that didn't fit, I'm going to twist it so it fits. Don't do that. Get more information so you can find out what it's saying. But don't try to make it fit into any of man's dogmas. John 16, verse 3. Jesus has just told the disciples tough times are coming, and here's why. John 16:3. And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known the Father nor me. That's the world we're living in. Now, right now, we've got it very, very good. In America, anyway. We're not overtly persecuted, and I would hate to be in China. China, if you're a Christian in China, you're a real Christian. Because you don't just claim that to get some fame. No, you're persecuted. And you're probably killed. So he says right here, they're going to do that because they don't know the Father nor me. So it's dangerous for a nation not to know God. It's dangerous to the other people. One of the safest things that a nation can have is a bunch of Christians in it. Because Christians will act right. Or they're supposed to. They're supposed to act right. Without having legislation tell them to do it. 1 John 2. 1 John 2, verse 3. Now, a lot of people will take you to the book of 1 John when somebody gets saved. Adrian Rogers used to tell them to start with 1 John and read 1 John because it's a small book and it's John. John writes simple unless you're reading Revelation. He writes in simple words. But 1 John is a bad place to go for a new Christian because 1 John you can lose your salvation 4 or 5 times in one chapter. Here's one of them, 1 John 2, verse 3. And hereby we do know that we know him, if we keep his commandments. Now that's what a Christian's supposed to do. If you're saved, that's what your job is. But guess what? You never do it. You never keep all his commandments. So you'd always be wondering, I know I messed up yesterday. Did I lose it yesterday? And if I fall away, it's impossible to repent and, be renewed. And you pull your hair out in 1 John, that's written to the tribulation. So, but that's a fact. The simple fact still remains a Christian should produce Christ-like attributes. And so we should be keeping his commandments. Now, the way to get around that, if somebody brings it up and doesn't understand it, is without giving them a big, heavy doctrinal thesis on it, because it takes a lot of time to explain that, is say, and hereby we do know. If you want to know if you're saved, if you want to know him, know that you know him, then it's tied up in what you live like. If you're not living like a Christian, no wonder you're wondering, are you really a Christian? Well, probably everybody else is wondering that too. So start living right and see if that doesn't fix. Now, I've never had any problem with eternal security. When I got saved and I didn't doubt it. And I was saved at 5, so it doesn't have anything to do with age. It's I'm just simple, I guess. And so I never questioned it. But a lot of people do. And a lot of it is bound up in this right here. They don't live right. Well, when you follow the devil around, you start thinking you're part of his crowd, whether you are or not. Hosea 5 verse 5. Hosea 5 verse 5. And the pride of Israel doth testify to his face. Therefore shall Israel and Ephraim fall in their iniquity. Judah also shall fall with them. Now it's the north and the south are going down. He's been talking basically to the north. But now he said, I'm not limiting it just to the north. Judah's going that way too. So if she's going to follow in step, she's going to have the same outcome. It says, the pride of Israel does testify to his face. One place that a good con man learns to mask his expressions. But usually your face demonstrates what's going on in your heart. And pride is one of those that shows up very quickly. You can scan a crowd and pick them out. Go to the mall sometime. Do people watching. We went to the mall. That's the first time I've been to the mall in 50 years or something. not quite that long. In a long time. But go to the mall sometime. There weren't that many people there today. But go to the mall and watch people. You'll learn a lot by just watching people. You can see the ones that are in rebellion. It's just written all over their face, like he says right here, their face. I used to do this when I'd drop Toby off at Walmart to go grocery shopping. I would watch them come out the door. And then I'd pray for them as they came out based on what I saw. Without knowing them, don't talk to them, nothing. You can tell a lot, and God will show you a lot, just by examining the features of a face. He says right here, pride is written all over their face. And it's testifying. Hosea 7 verse 9. It says, strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not. Yea, gray hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth it not. Yet he knoweth not. Can't read. And the pride of Israel, here it is again, testifieth to his face. And they do not return to the Lord their God, nor seek him for all of this. They should have been able to look in the mirror. At some point, pride and sometimes pride is not, look how great I am, but it's, I know I can control everything. I'm the master of my fate. What's that famous poem, whatever that guy wrote? I'm the captain of my soul, I'm the master of my fate. Yeah, he was in a loony bin at the time that he wrote it. But you don't want to be the captain of your own fate and the master and all that garbage. That's pride, thinking that you got enough of what it takes to run your life, period. Proverbs 21. Proverbs 21:29. A wicked man hardeneth his face, but as for the upright, he directeth his way. There's no wisdom, nor understanding, nor counsel against the Lord. So if your face starts to get hard, you as a Christian are schizo. And if you'll just pay attention, you'll notice it really quick. You'll have reactions. The flesh will start doing things that you ain't a party to. And you'll have to let it know. When the face starts to get hard and rebellion starts to rise up and pride starts to seep in, you say, hey, there's no wisdom or counsel against the Lord. And if you are in front of God, you're not going to have no hard face. There will be no spirit of rebellion at the final judgment. So just put yourself there now. In your mind, go before the throne. He said we could come in boldly. And the reason we're coming in boldly is not because we're proud, but because we need help. Amen. Mercy and grace to help in time of need. And he's there for it. Proverbs 30 verse 13. This is, Solomon has looked all the way down to 2022. And he's seen the whole generation of millennials. He says, there's a generation, oh how lofty are their eyes, and their eyelids are lifted up. There's a generation whose teeth are as swords, and their jaw teeth as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth, and the needy from among men. Now, verse 14 is not our age. Verse 14 is the next one that's coming. The next one that's coming is about cannibalism. And we'll get into that later on as it comes up. But that's exactly what they're going to be doing. Literally devouring, eating the poor from off the earth and the needy among men. And those, I know everybody makes those figurative, and you can make it figurative and spiritualize it and get you some spiritual applications. That's good, do that. However, there's a literal explanation to it too, and this will literally be happening. We'll cover it when we get there. Jeremiah 14 verse 7. Jeremiah 14:7. This is, we looked at 666 this morning. This is the opposite of 666. 14 is 2 times 7, and now we're in verse 7. So this is 777. O Lord, though our iniquities testify against us, do thou it for thy name's sake. For our backslidings are many. You could almost put yourself in this prayer right here. You can say, God, forgive, heal, fix, do whatever needs doing, not because of me. I know I'm worthless, and my backslidings are so many I can't even bring them all to memory. That's the idea we've got here. We have sinned against thee. Now that's the right attitude, and that gets the right result. That's perfect from the human standpoint, is noticing the answer is God, and the problem is me, and I'm ready to confess it and forsake it. And that'll get you somewhere. Hosea 5 verse 6. They shall go with their flocks and with their herds to seek the Lord, but they shall not find him. Now remember, we saw earlier that God said, Ephraim's not hid from me, but it appears God has hid himself from Ephraim. They shall not find him. He hath withdrawn himself from them. God does that. God withdraws. Sometimes it's in punishment. Sometimes it's a test. Sometimes when a new Christian, when a man first gets saved, when you're a baby in Christ, it seems like God holds your hand and babies you. I mean, literally babies you. And does great things for you, and I mean, you're on the hotline 24/7. However, at some point, in order to learn to walk by faith, he has to withdraw a little bit. Now, it's not that he's deserted you, but he's got to withdraw to see you looking to him. Otherwise, he's just dragging you along like a little kid. In our passage here, this is God hiding. Now you'll find other explanations for it, but I think it's clear. It's God withdrawing himself. Now, obviously from the tone of the passage, it's because he's mad at them. It's in anger. He's withdrawing. Matthew 13:44. Matthew 13:44. This is a kind of a deep subject, and I'm going to give you one interpretation of it, and you go home and study it and come up with your own. You and God come up with your own, but this is the way I believe it's clear to me anyway. Matthew 13:44. Again, the kingdom of heaven is likened to treasure hid in a field, the which when a man hath found, he hideth the treasure or himself, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field. Okay, most people will tell you that what's being hidden here is the treasure. I say it's the man. It's the man who's hiding. God has hidden himself. Now he's going to go and he's going to sell all he has. That includes Jesus Christ on a cross to buy the whole world. And he bought the whole field when he did that. But as far as Israel's concerned, he's still hidden from them as a nation. The treasure is Israel, doctrinally. Exodus 19, verse 5. Exodus 19:5. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. He says, I'm going to call you a treasure. And that's exactly what our passage was about in Matthew. Look at it in Psalm 135. Psalm 135, verse 4. For the Lord hath chosen Jacob unto himself, and Israel for his peculiar treasure. Okay, there's the treasure. The treasure is the nation of Israel. And he found it. Where did he find it? He found it in a field. It's all mingled up with the world. That's what they were when he showed up on earth. God, the God of Israel, hides himself. Isaiah 45, verse 15. Isaiah 45, 15. I like a verse like this. No interpretation required at all. Just read the words on the page. Isaiah 45, 15. Verily, thou art a God that hidest thyself, O God of Israel, the Savior. It doesn't get any more clear than that. That's what he does. Isaiah 57, 17. Isaiah 57, 17. For the iniquity of his covetousness was I wroth, and smote him. I hid me, and was wroth, and he went on frowardly in the way of his heart. Now, I think that's matching what we're talking about here in Hosea. He's mad at them, and he's withdrawing in anger. It's not because he's testing or he's training or anything like that. He's mad, and that's why he's withdrawing. In our passage in Matthew, the man I don't believe is hiding the treasure. I believe he's hiding himself, just like we find in the Old Testament passages. When he found the treasure to begin with, it was already hidden. So there's no need to re-hide it. He's the one that goes and hides. The man hid himself, meaning everything he had, he sold, according to our passage, in order to get that field. Well, everything was Jesus Christ. It's all bound up in him. And when he offered himself, his blood, his life on that cross, that purchased for him the whole world. Now, he's done something beyond my imagination. With his purchase, he said, I still let it be your choice whether or not you come to me. That's the way we fight a war, isn't it? We fight these wars and we smash people to smithereens, and then we stay there. And we spend billions of dollars making it, a country like they had never even imagined. And then we let them run us out of there. And then we're apologizing the whole time. That's what God's done with this earth, is he paid the price required for all of man's sin. And then he said, I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want to take it or not? Well, that's a no-brainer. Look at Romans chapter 8. Romans 8, verse 22. The field includes not only people, but I say the field includes this whole world physically. Romans 8, 22. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only they, but we ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. When the bodies are all redeemed from all the ages, then both creation and everything created goes back to the way he started it, and that'll be millennium, and that'll be like it was in the garden. Let's see. I'll get so much. Look at Matthew 13:44 one more time. Matthew 13:44. Again, the kingdom of heaven is likened to a treasure hid in, and then the interpretation is the world, field. The which when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field, or the world. The field is the world. That's the interpretation. So Israel has been purchased as a nation. That's why he came. Specifically for Israel. He came to his own. Now, they rejected him, and that's where we got in on it, and the whole world gets a free pass if they choose to use it. But Israel as a whole, right now, they don't know who they are. They can say they're Jews, but they can't tell you what tribe they're from. Now, there's coming out, more and more of them are coming out saying we've traced it to this or that, and they're starting to document it. I saw a, I think it was a National Geographic special on it, how they were in India. Some tribe in India were claiming that they had roots all the way back and they knew what tribe they were and all this wild stuff. I'll bet we'll see more and more of that coming out, because when the tribulation starts, God seals his 144,000 and they're from the 12 tribes. And I know that he knows who the 12 tribes are. But I think at that point, so will man, or they'll have some kind of identifying mark, so it'll be clear. Look at Amos chapter 9. Amos 9, verse 9. Israel has not chosen to accept their Messiah when he showed up, so they get a do-over of him withdrawing. The intertestamental period from Malachi to Matthew, 490 years there where God has withdrawn. It's silent. Well, they get a duplicate. Right now in the church age, God is silent to Israel as a nation unless they come in as a Gentile. Amos 9, verse 9. For lo, I will command, and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like as corn is sifted in a sieve. Yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth. God says, I'm going to put them through it again. This is a reverse timeout. Instead of putting them in timeout, God's put himself in timeout. He's withdrawn. Luke chapter 22. Luke 22, verse 31. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. Israel's going to be sifted, and God's going to use the devil to do the sifting. That's what the tribulation is all about. The devil is not there an unattached opposition to God. God uses him.
That's right.
He's a tool. He's a tool of God. Here he's allowing the devil to sift Simon Peter. But he's going to do that with the whole nation of Israel in the tribulation. And he won't be able to go it's going to be bad, but he won't be able to do anything beyond what God allows, even in the tribulation. Deuteronomy 32. Deuteronomy 32:30. How should one chase 1,000, and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock, capital R, had sold them, and the Lord had shut them up? Oof. This is God saying there's coming a day if you don't follow what I've told you to do, and then I'm going to turn around and sell you. And that's what he's doing in the tribulation. Look at Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy 31:17. Deuteronomy 31:17. I think Hosea could loosely be prophesying maybe the 490 silent years, maybe the destruction from Assyria and Babylon, very loosely. And you could loosely tie in Rome to it. But that's not the full fulfillment. I think the full fulfillment shows us here, Deuteronomy 31:17. Then mine anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, draw himself away, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they will say in that day, are not these evils come upon us because our God is not among us? Yes, he's withdrawn himself. He's not there. That'll be the tribulation. Now, I don't have time to do this next verse, but this next verse is a good one. I'm just going to show you a fun thing that's in it. I'm going to give you a teaser for the next time. We'll read it and I'll show you the fun part. They have dealt treacherously against the Lord, for they have begotten strange children. Now shall a month devour them with their portions. Okay, we can loosely understand the beginning of that. They've been intermarrying, and they've produced strange children, Sumerians. And he says, the end of it is the part that I want y'all to tell me what it means. Now shall a month devour them with their portions. Now, most commentators are going to let you down on that. They're not going to tell you what it means. They're going to say a month. I looked at a dozen of them. They'll say a month just means a short duration. Or some of them will turn around and say it means a long duration, many days. They can't decide what a month's supposed to mean. It means 30 days. That's right. It means 30 days. Exactly a month. Okay, when did it happen? When will it happen? What is he talking about? And I'll give you 2 answers for it next week, and y'all may have some more. All right, that'll do it for tonight. Oh, we'll pick up Hosea 5:7 next week.